7:27 a.m. ETThree. days ago, Kansas City and Washington opened the offseason trade market by swapping quarterback Alex Smith for corner Kendall Fuller and a third-round pick. The move made sense for both sides. Washington suddenly had a plug-and-play replacement for the departing Kirk Cousins, while Kansas City got badly needed help in its secondary and opened up a spot in the lineup for 2017 first-rounder Patrick Mahomes. You know what happened next. Smith led Washington to first place in the NFC East before going down with a career-threatening leg injury. Fuller struggled in his debut season with Kansas City, but all Mahomes did was post one of the best seasons from any quarterback in league history during his first season as a starter. He's the favorite to win league MVP honors this weekend. Everything you need this week: 2018 playoffs coverage, full schedule, full standings, 2019 draft order, top 30 picks, more NFL coverage. In a league in which trades are far more common than they were in years past, one deal can be enough to transform a franchise. There are at least 3 teams that might not have made the playoffs if it weren't for the deals they made over the past 12 months. ETThree can't hope to live up to that standard, but amid the various swaps we've seen, there's plenty left to discuss and analyze. Let's evaluate the 30 most impactful trades from the past 365 days and give some perspective on what happened next. Some of those deals seemed significant at the time before petering out, while others that seemed innocuous yielded tangible, immediate results. I'm ordering and grading them in terms of how they impacted the 2018 season as opposed to picking one side or the other, so even though the Smith trade didn't really work out for Washington for reasons it couldn't have expected, the move had a significant effect on what happened to both teams. Let's work our way toward the most impactful trades of the year and begin with the moves that didn't quite shake the foundations of the NFL. Jump to a big name: QB Allen, O.T. Brown, W.R. Cooks, W.R. Cooper, QB Darnold, W.R. Gordon, QB Jackson, W.R. Landry, OLB Mac, C.B. Peters, QB Smith, C.B. Talib. Honorable mention: these are the moves that might have seemed important when they were made but bore little consequence after. A year after the Alex Smith swap, we devised 3 trades that would shake the landscape, including a new home for Antonio Brown. Let's project over/under win totals for next season, from worst to best. The Vikings and Colts could be tricky. We ranked the very best of the 2 best teams in the NFL, starting with the Rams' Aaron Donald and going down to the fringe starters. Tyrod Taylor's move to the Cleveland Browns ended up being a bust, as Hugh Jackson showed little aptitude with his new quarterback before benching the former Buffalo Bills starter for rookie Baker Mayfield. The Oakland Raiders made a pair of utterly useless moves in giving up a third-round pick for Martavis Bryant and a fifth-round selection for A.J. McCarron, who combined to play 232 offensive snaps in 2018. Over the summer, Dallas Cowboys Executive Vice President Stephen Jones suggested that new acquisition Tavon Austin would touch the ball 12 to 24 times per game on offense. Injuries and the inherent nature of Austin limited the former Los Angeles Rams wideout to 14 touches all season. The Teddy Bridgewater trade seemed like a fascinating gambit from the New Orleans Saints, but Bridgewater threw only 1 pass before a rusty performance in a meaningless Week 17 start against Carolina. With the Saints mostly capped out and Drew Brees returning, New Orleans will have to resist the lure of free agency to recoup a draft pick for the popular former Minnesota Vikings starter. The Jacksonville Jaguars traded a 5th-round pick for Carlos Hyde after the Browns starter averaged 3.4 yards per carry on his first 114 rushing attempts. They gave Hyde 58 carries over the subsequent 8 games and he averaged 3.3 yards per carry. Demaryius Thomas offered the Houston Texans some sorely needed help at receiver after Will Fuller went down, but the longtime Denver Broncos star averaged less than 40 receiving yards per game before tearing his Achilles tendon in December. The former New England Patriots running the Tennessee Titans organization went against Bill Belichick's propensity for trading down by moving up for a pair of front 7 pieces in last year's draft. Linebacker Rashaan Evans struggled early with a hamstring injury and didn't seem to find a set role in the lineup before playing better in December. The other defender makes the list below 30. Washington buys help for its playoff run. Packers trade Clinton Dix. Washington trades 2019 fourth-round pick. This trade made a lot more sense when it went down, given that Washington was 5-2 and had a 50.9% shot of making the postseason, per ESPN's Football Power Index. It was clear that the Packers didn't intend to keep around the free agent Clinton Dix after this season, and while DJ Swearinger was breaking out for Washington, going after the rangy first-round pick made tons of sense for Jay Gruden's team. It didn't work. Clinton Dix was thrown into the lineup immediately and struggled, while the team's playoff chances were shredded by a series of offensive injuries. Impact grade D29. Giants get linebacker help. Rams trade Alec Ogletree, 2019 7th-round pick. Giants trade 4-135, 6-176. The Rams helped make space for their offseason acquisitions by trading Ogletree to the Giants, who have needed help at inside linebacker seemingly since Antonio Pierce left after the 2009 season. The Georgia product didn't dramatically propel the Giants' defense forward. It ranked 24th in defensive DVOA for the second consecutive season, but he did rack up 2 short pick sixes, which is fun. Impact grade D28. Titans trade up for a pass rusher. Raiders trade 2-41. Titans trade 2-57, 3-89. Barnwell and friends discuss sports, usually. Podcast, Mike Sando on Championship Sunday. More, Dan Graziano. Titans fans would have been delighted to hear in August that Landry would manage to produce more sacks than Morgan and Orakpo combined, but with both veterans missing time, their 2 combined totals weren't even half of Landry's 4.5. Landry did rack up 14 quarterback knockdowns, and using the 45% rule, his 6.3 expected sack total suggests he's likely to take a step forward in 2019. With Khalil Mack on the roster at the time, the Raiders clearly had no need to grab a young pass rusher in this spot. Impact grade C27. Eagles nab a pass catcher at mid-season. Lions trade WR Golden Tate. Eagles trade 2019 third-round pick. How much is one catch worth? Tate seemed to become a burden on the Eagles' offense, which was already overfilled with options in the slot, and the former Seahawks and Lions standout racked up just 25.3 receiving yards per game with a lone touchdown during his 8 games in Philly. After being marginalized, though, Tate came through with a big 28-yard catch over the middle of the field against the Bears in the wild-card game before bringing in a 4th-down throw from 2 yards out for a touchdown to give the Eagles a 16-15 lead with 1:01 to go. Tate finished his season with 18 yards against the Saints in the divisional round, and with the Eagles in rough salary cap straits, he has likely played his last game in a Philly uniform. General manager Howie Roseman gave up a third-round pick and paid Tate $3.7 million, but with the Eagles likely sitting out unrestricted free agency, they should recoup a compensatory pick in 2020 for their troubles. With a wildly unimpressive wideout market available, Tate should get in excess of $10 million per year on a short-term deal, which should be enough to net the Eagles a 4th-round selection. Impact grade C. Golden Tate was a crucial part of the Eagles' wildcard win over the Bears, but he is a free agent this offseason. Jerry La USA Today Sports 26. Dolphins acquire a defensive end. Rams trade the Robert Quinn, 6-209. Dolphins trade 4-111, 6-183. The Rams essentially shipped off their former Defensive Player of the Year candidate for cap space, as Los Angeles ended up using the $10.3 million it saved by trading Quinn as part of the package to entice Ndamukong Suh to town. The Dolphins, who cut Suh, clearly saw themselves emulating the Eagles by building a deep rotation of edge rushers. It didn't go well. William Hayes tore his ACL. 2017 first-rounder Charles Harris missed a month with a calf injury and finished with 1 sack. Andre Branch continued to underwhelm after signing an inexplicable extension before 2017, and 36-year-old Cameron Wake slowed down some amid a knee scope. Quinn had just 1 sack in the first half of the season before racking up 5.5 takedowns over a 6-week span afterward. He could be on the move again this offseason. Impact grade, C25. Bengals trade for a left tackle. Bills trade, OT Cordy Glenn, 1-21, 5-158. Bengals trade, 1-12, 6-187. In desperate need of help protecting Andy Dalton after the organization let Andrew Whitworth leave town, the Bengals officially called an end to the Cedric Ogbuehi experiment and traded for Glenn, who immediately stepped in at left tackle. The 6'6" Georgia product suffered a shoulder injury during the preseason and missed 3 games with a back injury, but Stats LLC suggests Glenn allowed just 1 sack in 13 games. The Bengals' offense faded after a hot start, but that was mostly thanks to the injuries suffered by Dalton and A.J. Green. The Bills could have used their former first-round pick to protect Josh Allen, but, given that they used the 12th overall pick to trade up and grab the Wyoming product, keeping Glenn might have prevented them from drafting their new quarterback. Impact grade, C24. 49ers trade up for a speedy receiver. Washington trades 2-44, 5-142. 49ers trade 2-59, 3-74. A daily draft of the best bets on today's board, featuring expert bettors from the Action Network picking real action in every sport. Watch on ESPN. The 49ers gave up a surprisingly large haul to move up and grab Dante Pettis. Picks 59 and 74 amount to 15.8 points in the Chase Stewart draft value chart, roughly equivalent to the 19th overall pick in a typical draft. It seemed curious, given that the team already seemingly had too many weapons within Kyle Shanahan's offense, but after everyone besides George Kittle went down injured, Pettis emerged as Nick Mullins' top target. Over a 4-week stretch from weeks 12 to 15, Pettis caught 17 passes for 338 yards and 4 touchdowns. That's not enough to proclaim Pettis as a guaranteed starter going forward, but that late-season blip could augur a season-long breakout with Jimmy Garoppolo back in 2019. Impact grade, C23. Browns get their no. 1 wideout. Dolphins trade, W.R. Jarvis Landry. Browns trade, 4-123. 2019 7th-round pick. The Dolphins placed the franchise tag on Landry in the hopes of getting a draft pick and ended up netting a 4th-rounder from the Browns. Miami appears to have used the 7th-rounder to acquire 16-game starter Akeem Spence from the Lions. The 4th-round pick was used on tight end Durham Smythe, who caught 6 passes as a rookie. After signing Danny Amendola and Albert Wilson last offseason, offensive coordinator Dowell Logans bizarrely suggested that the Dolphins would use 3 tight ends for stretches in 2018. In the end, Miami used 13 personnel 33 times for 64 yards and just 5 first downs, each of which ranked among the lowest marks in football. The bigger name in the trade was Landry, who signed a 5-year, $75.5 million deal with the Browns after coming over from Miami. His first year in Ohio was uneven. Landry wasn't used as a source of cheap yards in his new home. His average target traveled 10.8 yards in the air, way up from the almost comically low 6.6-yard average Landry worked with during his 3 years in Miami. Simultaneously, though, Landry went from catching nearly 69% of his passes from 2015 to 2017 in Miami to just 54.4% in Cleveland last season. The changes weren't for the better, as Landry finished 79th in individual receiving DVOA, suggesting that the Browns might need to return Landry to his specialized role to get the sort of return they were hoping to garner from their top wideout. Impact grade, C22. Patriots take a flyer on a talented pass catcher. Browns trade, W.R. Josh Gordon. 2019 7th-round pick. Patriots trade, 2019 5th-round pick. Bill Belichick tried to find a weapon for his depleted receiving core by swapping picks with the Browns to acquire Gordon, but while the Pats immediately inserted the one-time star into their starting lineup, Gordon lasted only 11 games before stepping away from the team to focus on his mental health. The NFL suspended Gordon for violating the league's substance abuse policy shortly thereafter, and his professional future is once again uncertain. Impact grade, C. Josh Gordon had 40 catches and 3 touchdowns in 11 games for the Patriots, but he has been suspended by the NFL again. AP photo, Elise Amendola 21. Cardinals get their quarterback. Raiders trade, 1-10 Cardinals trade, 1-15, 3-79, 5-152 to get Josh Rosen. The Cardinals sent 26.8 points of value on the Chase Stewart draft value chart, roughly somewhere between the 3rd and 4th overall pick. In year 1, though, Rosen wasn't an impact contributor. It seems fair to assign a huge chunk of the blame to an offensive line that was starting 5 backups by December. The Raiders, meanwhile, used the 15th pick on Colton Miller, who had an uneven season at left tackle. The 79th pick went to the Steelers for Martavis Bryant, which was a disastrous waste of a good pick. Oakland then traded 152 to the Ravens as part of the package to move up from 75 to 65, where it drafted fellow starting tackle Brandon Parker. Getting 2 starting linemen out of one trade is impressive, but Miller and Parker combined to allow 21.5 sacks in 2018, per Stats LLC. Impact grade, C20. Rams acquire a veteran corner. Broncos trade, CB Aqib Talib. Rams trade, 5-160. This trade would rank much higher if Talib had stayed healthy. The Rams allowed a passer rating of just 69.0. with Talib on the field, but when the veteran corner was taking a breather or sidelined by a mid-season ankle injury, Wade Phillips' defense allowed a passer rating of 108.6. Roughly, the Rams were the Bears with Talib on the field and the Bengals with Talib unavailable, but the Kansas product missed more than 63% of dropbacks. You get the feeling this figure might rise if we were including the Super Bowl to come. Impact grade, C19. Rams get mid-season edge rush help. Teddy, Earl and Le'Veon will be available. Here's everything to know on the class. Ranking the top 50 NFL free agents. Meet the offseason quarterback market. Top free agent decisions for all 32 teams. Biggest offseason needs for every team. Underrated free agents who will get paid. Predicting QB Nick Foles' future. More NFL coverage. Jaguars trade, OLB, the Dante Fowler Jr. Rams trade, 2019 third-round pick. Like Tate, Fowler didn't make much of an impact during the regular season, as the former third overall pick picked up only 2 sacks and 5 knockdowns in 8 games for LA. And like Tate, Fowler came up with a huge play in the postseason when he hit Drew Brees in overtime of the NFC Championship game, forcing an interception that eventually set up the game-winning field goal from Greg Zuerlein. The difference, of course, is that Tate's play pushed the Eagles to only the divisional round, while Fowler's sack helped send the Rams to the Super Bowl. Fowler has 1.5 sacks in 2 postseason games, and if he has a big night against the Patriots on Sunday, the 24-year-old is likely going to collect more money than you might think in free agency this offseason. The Rams would probably have to bow out of that bidding and settle for draft pick compensation, just like the Eagles will with Tate. Impact grade, C18. New Orleans trades up for an edge rusher. Packers trade, 1-14. Saints trade, 1-27, 5-147, 2019 first-round pick, 1-30. We're not paying enough attention to just how much the Saints paid to move up to grab pass rusher Marcus Davenport in the middle of the first round. They finished with the 3rd lowest draft pick in football for 2019 and, by the Stewart chart, still managed to give the Packers 29.3 points of draft capital. That's something between the 2nd and 3rd overall pick in a typical draft, and it's not even for the sort of quarterback the Saints expect to take over from Drew Brees for the next decade. Instead, New Orleans used 2 first-round picks to move up to draft Davenport, who was regarded as a promising project coming out of UTSA. What we saw in 2018 was, well, a promising project. Davenport racked up 4.5 sacks and 12 knockdowns in 13 games while rotating in at defensive end. He missed 3 games with a toe injury, and it's still absolutely too early to say whether the 22-year-old Davenport will turn into a superstar, but the Saints paid for this pick as if he were the top player on their board. The break-even for this trade is Davenport maturing into Calais Campbell. It's tough for this sort of investment to work out for any draft candidate who isn't a quarterback. Impact grade: C. The Saints gave up a lot to get pass rusher Marcus Davenport in last year's draft, and he had 4.5 sacks as a rookie. David J. Phillip, AP Photo 17. Patriots turn a returner into a running back. Raiders trade WR Cordero Patterson, 6 to 210. Patriots trade 5 to 159. When the Patriots traded for Patterson in March, it looked like New England was buying low on a successful kick returner who was out of favor with the new regime in Oakland. That part was true, given that the 27-year-old Patterson averaged 28.8 yards per return and took a kickoff 95 yards to the house in a 38-31 victory over the Bears. What nobody could have expected, though, is that Bill Belichick would see a 220-pound struggling wide receiver and turn him into a power running back. Patterson carried the ball 42 times for 228 yards this season and played a regular role at halfback when the Pats were down Rex Burkhead, Jeremy Hill and Sony Michel for a stretch in mid-season. Impact grade: C16. Buffalo grabs its quarterback of the future. Buccaneers trade 1 to 7, 7 to 255. Bills trade 1 to 12, 2 to 53, 2 to 56. While the final trade to get Josh Allen involved 3 picks, the Bills needed to make several other deals to get these selections in the first place. On the whole, the Bills dealt Cordy Glenn and Sammy Watkins along with a 21st, 53rd, 158th and 195th selections to acquire E.J. Gaines along with the 7th, 187th and 255th picks in the draft. Gaines lasted only 1 year with the Bills, so Buffalo needs Allen to pan out for this deal to work. Year 1 with Allen in charge was a mixed bag at best. The first-round pick was excellent as a scrambler, but struggled mightily with the downfield throws that were supposed to be his calling card. The Bills went 4-3 over their final 7 games, but those 4 wins were over the Jets, Jaguars, Lions and Dolphins. The Bills have plenty of cap room to work with this offseason, and they'll go after weapons to help their second-year passer in 2019. Impact grade: C15. Bills move up for an every-down linebacker. Ravens trade 1 to 16, 5 to 154. Bills trade 1 to 22, 3 to 65. The more productive of Buffalo's first-round picks in year 1, by a significant margin, was Tremaine Edmunds. The Virginia Tech product filled up every line in the stat sheet, racking up 2 interceptions, 2 sacks, 7 quarterback hits, 5 tackles for loss and 12 passes defensed. The latter ranked second among linebackers, and Edmunds led the team in unassisted tackles. With Edmunds, Matt Milano and Tre'Davious White, the Bills have an exciting young defensive core under coach Sean McDermott. Impact grade: B14. Lions get a snack. Giants trade D.T. Damon Harrison. Lions trade 2019 5th-round pick. When you acquire snacks Harrison, you know what you're getting: a dominant anchor for your run defense. Before acquiring Harrison, the Lions were allowing opposing teams to average 5.3 yards per carry and convert 25.5% of their runs into first downs. After getting snacks away from the Giants, though, Matt Patricia's defense allowed just 3.0 yards per carry and first downs just 15.4% of the time while Harrison was on the field. The 30-year-old tackle even chipped in with 3.5 sacks and 7 knockdowns. He was everything the Lions could have hoped for when they made this trade, although the upgrade didn't do much on the whole for a dismal defense. Impact grade: B13. Rams get an all-pro cornerback. Chiefs trade CB Marcus Peters, 6 to 209. Rams trade 4 to 124, 2019 second-round pick. Few teams are interested in trading an all-pro at a key position as he turns 25, but the Chiefs seemed adamant about dealing Peters after an up-and-down 2017 season. Kansas City's cornerbacks were a mess before dealing Peters and continued to give Bob Sutton's defense fits in 2018, but the Rams didn't get the sort of shutdown play they were hoping for from their new addition. Peters picked off 3 passes and took 1 to the house, but he was badly torched by top receivers and struggled with Aqib Talib out of the lineup. Peters remains enigmatic. He could pick off Tom Brady twice on Sunday and win Super Bowl MVP, or he could just as easily be the target of the Patriots offense. It remains to be seen whether the Rams will sign him to an extension this offseason. Impact grade B. Marcus Peters had an up-and-down year for the Rams, and he has one season left on his rookie deal. Chuck Cook, USA Today Sports 12. Packers move up for cornerback help. Seahawks trade 1-18, 7-248. Packers trade 1-27, 3-76, 6-186. After trading down with the Saints as part of the Marcus Davenport deal, the Packers used a third-round pick as the bait to move back up and draft Jaire Alexander. While they struggled mightily with injuries on defense, Green Bay has to be delighted with their first-round pick. As the season went on, the Packers gave him more and more responsibilities against the team's top receiver. Bill Belichick, of all people, said Alexander would be one of the top corners in the game for quite a while here, which is good enough for us. Impact grade B11. The Browns find a free safety. Packers trade DB Demarius Randall 4-114, 5-150. Browns trade QB Deshaun Kaiser 4-104, 5-138. The various picks involved make this something like Kaiser and the 193rd pick in the draft for Randall, which ended up as a huge steal for the Browns. While Kaiser was going to be buried on the depth chart and posted a 40.5 passer rating in limited time for the Packers, Randall stepped in and excelled as Cleveland's free safety. The Browns finished with the fourth-best passer rating in the league against deep passes, and the ranginess of the former cornerback in center field played a huge role in inhibiting deep throws. Randall's arrival also freed the Browns to push Jabril Peppers forward toward the line of scrimmage. Randall is likely to sign an extension as early as this offseason. Impact grade B10. Buccaneers finally get a productive edge rusher. Giants trade the Jason Pierre-Paul 4-102. Buccaneers trade 3-69, 4-108. Tampa didn't do much of anything right on defense in 2018, but the trade for JPP netted the Bucs their best single season from an edge rusher in more than a decade. Pierre-Paul finished with 12.5 sacks, becoming the first Buccaneers defender to top 10 sacks in a season since Simeon Rice in 2005. The 30-year-old hadn't topped the 10-sack mark himself since the 2014 campaign. He also chipped in with 16 tackles for loss, and while the Bucs' defense was a horrific mess, Pierre-Paul wasn't to blame. Impact grade B9. Eagles add to their defensive line depth for cheap. Seahawks trade Michael Bennett 7-250. Eagles trade Marcus Johnson 5-156. The Seahawks clearly decided that they wanted to move on from Bennett this past offseason, but it's hard to believe there wasn't more of a market for one of the league's most underrated pass rushers. The 3 years and $20.9 million left on Bennett's deal made him a relative bargain given the cost of edge rushers, and the 32-year-old continued to deliver during his debut season in Philly. Bennett racked up 9 sacks and a whopping 30 quarterback knockdowns, good for the fourth most in football, all while playing a relatively modest 69% of Philadelphia's defensive snaps. Johnson never caught a pass in a Seahawks uniform before moving on to the Colts, but the Seahawks did use the 156th pick to help move up and grab All-Pro punter Michael Dickson at 149. Impact grade B. Michael Bennett had 9 sacks in his first year in Philadelphia. Julio Cortez, AP Photo 8. Another Giants defender goes to the NFC South and excels. Saints trade 2019 4th-round pick, 2020 7th-round pick. Giants trade CB Eli Apple. It's no surprise that the Giants moved on from their former first-round pick, as Apple fell out of favor during a disastrous 2017 season and wasn't drafted by the current regime. What was surprising, instead, is that Apple went to the Saints and almost immediately upgraded the weakest point in their starting lineup by taking over for Ken Crawley at cornerback. The Saints allowed a passer rating of 92.7 with Apple on the field, a mark that fell to 111.5 when Apple was on the sidelines.